Nate, let's finish off this Sunday slate here. We've got our fourth game. Back to the Western Conference we go in a series that's much more fun than we originally thought. Even that game four, once game three, the Suns pulled it out here in this Suns Pelicans series. Suns now up 2-1, winning that game three without Book, which is the biggest, talking point right now of the series. But there's a few more things to talk about after that game three. And we saw the Suns really, control things. A lot of great minutes from guys like Mikal Bridges. Campaign gave them a big lift. Landry Shamet gave them a big lift in a lot of ways, getting 27 minutes in that game. So some guys that you definitely, we've talked about, it's a deep bench, man. They're a deep team. They're now minus 650 to win this series is Phoenix, and you get plus 480 for New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans just got 64 combined points from CJ and Brandon Ingram and weren't able to pull this one out. So it does leave you feeling like, what do they have that they didn't really already try to use in terms of a game plan or a wild card up their sleeve? But I'm not necessarily counting them out, man. It was a close game. They showed a lot of spunk coming back after, the Suns would build a couple double-digit leads. They owned that third quarter, and then Chris Paul does what he does in the fourth. But there's still the reason to believe that the Pellies could win this game, no?
Definitely. And yeah, I think the way to bet this series is not to take either line, but to take the Suns in 6 at plus 230 or the Suns in 7 at plus 350. It's the same kind of theory we're using for that Heat-Hawks series. I think the Pelicans are going to get at least one more game here, one way or another, because the margin for error is pretty slim for the Suns without Booker. I mean, they are still deep enough and good enough, and they owned the paint in game 3. I'm definitely leaning towards betting them and them winning again, for sure. When you shoot 4 for 26 from 3 and still win the game, that's incredible. That almost cannot happen in any situation because they shot 66% inside the arc, because Chris Paul went off for 19 points in the fourth quarter for the second time this series. Also continued his insane assist numbers against this Pelicans defense. And Ayton, who we thought, was not scoring against Joval, has just owned this matchup lately. He now has a 139 offensive rating in the series. And Joval had just 6 points on 1 for 5 field goal shooting, couldn't really stay on the floor. Jackson Hayes got ejected, which is going to help the Suns, in terms of their ability to exploit that.
Help JaVale.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And because JaVale was just owning Jackson Hayes as well. And Bridges, the last 2 games after being quiet in game 1, he has a 133 offensive rating. Those guys are just playing off Paul beautifully. He is the maestro who sets it all up. I don't think we're betting against Chris Paul, which is why I really like the fourth quarter numbers. Again, I think we talked about it in this last game that if it's angling towards the under, live bet that over in this game, because the Suns are so money in the fourth quarter, and the Pelicans have been so money too. These teams actually both lead the playoffs with an exact same 137 offensive rating in the fourth quarter, which is insane that they're dead even in that fourth. Tough to pick a winner when that's happening. But the Pels in their last 2 fourth quarters are shooting 50% from 3 and 61% from the field. A lot of that is just in the comeback effort. You saw like CJ right down to the wire, hitting threes, even though they were down 7 and those threes didn't matter. They certainly matter if you're betting the over. And at 217, it is pretty low.
Yes,
I think you can take that over pregame, but I think it's even better to take it during the game. For sure.
No, I feel you. I was watching that game last night, and it's interesting because there was a point in the third quarter, and this is just some live betting, real intricacies. But because I agree with what you're saying, because if you look at the offensive ratings for both of these teams in that fourth quarter, it was, however you want to phrase it, bad defense, good offense. It was 143.5 offensive rating for the Suns, 139 offensive rating for the Pelly. So they're both playing really well. They just played it at a 92 pace is the problem. That's why I actually live bet an under in the third quarter. But I'm being really specific here because it was a point in the third quarter where both teams were just going back and forth, 3-3-3, or, CJ bucket at the top of the shot clock, right? Boom. And within 5 seconds. So the pace picked up over the course of a 4 or 5 minute span. And I was just really into the game and watching it because it was the third quarter when the Pellies were coming back. I bet the under because they basically were valuing this at saying that at that point in the game with 3 minutes left in the third quarter at that point, that basically there was going to be 65 points scored in the fourth quarter was basically the live total that I was getting at the rate. It was because they thought that the pace was going to continue. We were now seeing an offensive game, blah, blah, blah. It was overvalued. So I like that under, but I think that in this game, especially as you come back here and realize that even if you're going to get a slower pace in that fourth quarter, just because Chris Paul is now playing the game exactly how he wants to, there's still going to be plenty of offense. And I don't trust the Suns right now. If Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum are going to both be going off for, individual offensive ratings in the 120s or 130s, the Suns, it's not because the Suns aren't throwing combinations of Jay Crowder, Torrey Craig, and Mikal Bridges at them, three of the best wing defenders in the league. And they're still doing what they want, getting to their spots. Kudos to Willie Green for getting his guys to their spots. But I do think that the value in a total is better live than it is at the start of this game. If I'm going to bet it at the start of this game, I am going over once again because of the efficiencies on offense that both of these teams are playing with, especially the Pellies when they are at home, and the Suns, regardless of where they are, playing with that same level of efficiency as well. But yeah, I'm not going to just go ahead and start, chasing Phoenix bets here just because I think they're going to win. Outside of, I'm not going to chase the line, I should say. I feel good taking a Suns money line here, but not nearly as good as I do of just betting that total more so because this is a game 4 where Pellies are coming out for their lives, which is why, like you were saying a minute ago, I like offense because that's where their strength is, and that's what they're going to have to rely upon in terms of New Orleans.
Yeah, and you can rely on Chris Paul having a high usage rate. Is only 25%, surprisingly, in the first game without Booker, but if you took a usage rate plus assist rate, it's through the roof. I mean, the ball is in his hands all the time, and he played 40 minutes. Went 1 for 6 from 3, which I think you could expect some of those to fall too. I mean, he still cruised past his props, which we loved at 32.5 points assists. Actually, throughout that DK special, 25 assists, 25 points, 14 assists for plus 650, I think. And he just got there with the assists. Keep an eye out for those type of specials. I think the threes are still a good bet for him as he will look to keep the team in it with those. But yeah, the Pelicans much better on offense. At home, 5 points better, I believe, since March 1st. And basically in the CJ era, a very reliable home team. Yeah, a 122 offensive rating since the start of March under CJ. And a 115 defensive rating. And, you're not facing offenses of the quality of this Suns team. If they go small, too, with more Larry Nance, less Joe Val, I think that benefits offense on both ends, despite the fact that Larry Nance is actually a better individual defender because he's quicker. Yeah. I just think it's going to speed up the pace a little bit and make it more of a spread game. And that's when Ayton goes off. And that's another guy to watch his props. Like I said, 26 and 17 first game without Book. I believe he averaged about 22 points without Book the last 2 seasons. Yeah. He's got to do more. And he did. He stepped up. I guess a little bit too quick for Joe Val is why he got played off the floor.
Yeah, we were talking about Joe Val's matchup with DeAndre Ayton before the series started as well, and saying that Joe Val had dominated the young guy, and DeAndre Ayton just sort of took another step. If he took a huge step last year in the playoffs and got his due credit for how good he is already in his young career, he's taken another step because he just battled another demon, which was how bad he played against Joe Val, who was averaging like 17 boards a game against him in their previous 5 matchups before this series started. And now it's Ayton's series. And it doesn't matter if you put somebody smaller on Ayton, who's a little bit faster like Nance. He's athletic as hell. He's very fleet of foot and is definitely a center that you can continue to think, has top 5 qualities, man. I think if he's not already a top 5 center, which I think he is, he's on his way to staying there in that list. list for a while, literally amongst the two best, right? In Joker and Embiid. Maybe he won't get to those levels, but at the same time, third best center in the league for his career is not bad. So I would continue to look for his props as well, as I think he's sort of established himself against Joe Val in too many different ways, and this team in general. So that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. We're going to continue firing out these videos for you each and every day, and the weekends as well, as we continue on through these playoffs. So until we see you next, happy betting.